These days, I spend a lot of time in my house, more than I ever have in all the years I've lived here. And I notice even now more the various pictures that I have in my house, pictures from the past, pictures of my family, my ancestors. And they not only tell me a lot about the lives that they lived, but they also, for me, have become these sort of symbols, these sort of inspirations to think about how I am being called to live my faith in the time that I am now living in. And so this picture here is a picture that I see every day. It is a picture of my maternal grandmother, Anne. She's in the longer, lighter colored coat. And her sister, who we called Aunt May. She's in that darker sweater. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to you. I have a lot of glare at this time of day. So I want you to see these two sisters standing in a backyard, arm and arm. I see this every day because the thermostat to the house is on the wall next to their picture. So in the morning and the evening, I'm always adjusting that, and I say good morning to them and I say good night to them at the end of the day. I've seen this picture, like I said, millions of times. Don't know how I actually got this picture. This picture was sent, this very copy was sent to their brother, George, who was serving in the armed forces during the Second World War. Now, my aunt wrote a message on the back that is kind of hilarious, but unless you're a member of my family, it would mean nothing to you. But the other day, as I was turning the picture, I looked at the back, and there was a piece of information that I've always known, but I just never thought about it until that day. It's dated. It's dated March 1945. And as I looked at it, I said, that's 76 years ago, this very month, March 1945. Now, I don't know if you know anything about 1945 and March of 1945, but that was an important month with the war that was taking place in Europe, the Second World War. There were numerous victories that the Allies had accomplished and won in this month, and it was beginning this sort of momentum that would see the war coming to an end a few months later in the month of June. In the month of June. So I look at these two women standing here and I see them arm to arm, and I'm wondering if as they stood there in March, they were beginning to feel these glimmers of hope, that the long sacrifices that they had made and the hardships that they had endured and the worry about family and friends who were serving in the military, that it was finally going to come to an end. And I think for me, this picture also symbolizes other people of that generation, family, friends, neighbors, strangers, coworkers, people of all faiths and languages and cultures who stood shoulder to shoulder, who linked arm with arm. The victory was not only won by the military overseas, it was won also by the women and men who did their part at home. And so again, what seems familiar to me is more than just my two relatives here. But I think that looking back at this picture from the past, it tells us a lot. It gives us a guide as to how we move forward on the road ahead. This coming week, it will be exactly a year since the pandemic hit and everything as we knew closed down. But a year later, there are vaccines. Every day I hear of different people who have got their appointment and they're excited that they finally have gotten an appointment to get the vaccine. So I'm thinking about in March of 2021, we're experiencing this glimmer of hope, hope that has kept us together over the past year, but hope that now propels us toward a better future. And I'm thinking of the glimmers of hope that we're feeling right now. I'll bet that's what these two women were feeling 76 years ago this month. Today's first reading is from the prophet Hosea. And if you read his writing, the theme of hope just goes through the entire work. Very little is known about his life. When you read his writings, it seems he was a very passionate and very sensitive man. And the little that we do know about his personal life seems like the stuff of bad reality TV or a soap opera. He is at one point forced to marry a woman, and Hosea very soon discovers she's a prostitute. And she has no intention of giving up that line of work. But Hosea remains faithful to her, even as she is unfaithful to him. Hosea links his arms to God and says, God, guide me through this as I'm trying to find the way ahead. And then he uses his personal experience. And Hosea turns his attention to the Hebrew people who are unfaithful to God. They've turned to idolatry. And yet, speaking for God, Hosea, and that's the passage we hear today, Hosea tells them God has not given up hope on you. God still believes there's a way back for you. He says, God tells them, I will love them freely, for my wrath is turned away from them. My wrath is turned away from them. God is holding out his hand to them. No questions asked. All they have to do is reach their hands out to him. The journey of Lent this year and last year is much different than any Lent in the past. Words like loss, sacrifice, distance, those are familiar words that now have completely new meaning for us. But looking back, not only over the past year, not only to my family's personal history, but to the time of Jesus and even before, the word love has not changed. Its meaning has not changed, nor has its power. In today's gospel, Jesus tells his disciples, you must live the command of love. By love, Jesus is not suggesting that we all get along and we're kind and nice. No, for Jesus, love is about taking risks. It's about making the sacrifices. It's about doing the work of forgiveness, forgiving others and asking for forgiveness. It's doing that work now so that the path ahead is clear and that we go forward united. What does it mean for you to be a disciple who is living the command of love? And how has this past year deepened, challenged, changed your understanding of what it means to live the command of love? And are there people, as you reach back into your own past, or reach back into the past lives of saints, or even the lives of people in the Bible, are there people who you look back to and say their challenge, their words, their example of love is what's guiding me today? On this day, March 12th, 1922, the American author Jack Kerouac was born. One of his most famous books is called On the Road. He was one of the most amazing authors, yet tragically his life was plagued and his death was caused by alcoholism. In one of his other books, he has one of his characters say this: down on the lake, rosy reflections of celestial vapor appeared, and I said, God, I love you, and looked to the sky and really meant it. I have fallen in love with you, God. Take care of us all, one way or another. I look back at the faithful, suffering prophet Hosea. I look back to Kerouac, a complicated, tragic, yet gifted and brilliant writer. But even more, I look back to these two women standing in a backyard on a March day in 1945. God, I love you. Take care of us all, one way or another. That could have been their prayer then. No matter where you are standing today, March 2021, may that be our prayer. May it be our hope. And may it also be our guide for all the days ahead.